What is a subtle sign that someone is actually really intelligent, but pretending not to be? One time 20 years ago, a professor of mine who I respected a ton said, "I think I understand what you're saying, but can you explain what you mean one more time, just in case?" I was dumbstruck in the idea that someone wanted to make sure they understood me, that what I'm saying might be complicated enough that they wouldn't get it immediately. To this day, I always try to do the same. It's absolutely amazing how little we understand each other the first time, and how scared we are at looking stupid for not instantly getting it perfect, not being afraid to ask for clarification, because that's what heroes do. Oh, yeah, that's not me. Not only do I not double ask for clarification, I definitely don't understand people most of the time. Just smile and nod. Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave. Next story. I don't think I'm very intelligent, but if someone speaks like they are the smartest person in the room, I'm always more than happy to play the part of the idiot. Playing the fool makes it easier to see people for who they really are. If they're good people, they won't change much. If they're bad people, they'll attempt to talk down to you or manipulate you. Next story. The older you get, the more you learn not to challenge every dumb thing people say, unless it's going to lead to someone being hurt or mistreated. But if they are just casually saying something dumb, sometimes it's most polite to just let them be dumb, versus turn everything into an argument. You don't have to correct people in casual conversation, especially if it's at your job. Just nod along and pretend you don't know. And God forbid if it's something political. Unless you're ready for the entire war with that person, don't start a battle. Next story. I do think that more intelligent people who want to minimize or obscure that fact are more prone to be quiet, ask a lot of questions, and withhold their own opinions. They can silently analyze, integrate, and formulate challenges while the other person blabs on recklessly. Then, if they feel like it, they can speak up with a strong counterpoint. But I also think more intelligent people don't often feel the need to argue a point with someone. I think people who rely on emotionally driven arguments are quicker to fight to the death over something, whereas a more intellectually driven person can recognize the flaws in another's view and move on quietly, assured in their own understanding without feeling threatened by others. That's a good point. We need a lot more of that in general in life. We all tend to be a bit gung-ho on trying to reinforce our own ideas and our own beliefs and making sure you agree with me because this is it. This is the way. But I like that. The ability to just sit in a disagreement and know that you're not going to get along. Know you're not on the same page, and that's okay. Everybody's got different points. We've all got different thoughts and beliefs. Now, most of mine are wrong, and that's unfortunate, but I'm still willing to just, sit on that. Next story. Being aware of their own gaps in knowledge and being willing to have their own opinions changed. I've always been in awe of people that are able to admit that they don't know an answer and are willing to go find it. Shows an understanding of the topic and of themselves. Next story. It's not that they are plain dumb, but people who are smart and know they are smart don't need to prove to anyone how smart they are. It's always the most verbal or braggadocious people that are suspect. Smarts, wealth, penis size, doesn't matter. If they are talking about it, it's probably not what they are pretending it to be, so they feel the need to convince everyone that it really is that way. Next story. I've yet to meet someone with really high emotional intelligence who wasn't also smart across the board. Conversely, I've met tons of people who could probably build a rocket from scratch, but couldn't build a rapport with a stranger to save their lives. But EI is how everything gets done in the real world, and it's easy and free. You can be genuinely kind and thoughtful to the cashier at a store or your server at a restaurant, and it's never a bad idea. Socially, it's how you get invited back to parties and invited out to activities. Professionally, the person who is easy and pleasant to work with will probably be the one who survives the round of layoffs. People I know and admire with strong EI are usually seen as thoughtful by others. They hang back if someone is walking slower. They remember when you got cut off in the middle of saying something in a group and give you another opening to continue your thought. They make a point of remembering small likes and dislikes and using that information later on for gifts or in a later conversation. In many ways, we are defined by our public and social perception. That doesn't mean you should be fake or only live to impress others. It means that you have a lot to gain by putting more effort into being aware of those around you, especially people who don't immediately have something you want or need. Yeah, Yeah, I'm a bit of a golden retriever. I tend to be pretty good with people. I consider myself thoughtful. Maybe my emotional intelligence is pretty high. I wish my intelligence was high. Maybe I should read more books instead of Reddit stories. Next story. I see a lot of answers about being quiet and listening, which I agree. However, I'd argue one of the most intelligent people I've ever met is pretty talkative, pretty boisterous, and so dang funny. He frequents the bar often. I think he just likes to socialize. And I see him talking to all different walks of people, always has something he can identify with them on, always discussing interesting topics, and always making people laugh. I enjoy when I go to happy hour, and he is there. Next story. From what I noticed, it's the accidental display of skill. Once in a while, seemingly by mistake, intelligent people might let slip a highly nuanced observation or a complex, esoteric piece of knowledge, like citing a very specific historical detail or using a sophisticated analogy, before quickly retreating back to their simpler persona. They say Norm Macdonald was a lot like that, yeah? Like a genuinely highly intelligent guy, but his personality was just a more simple goofball, just one of the guys hanging out. Next story. I'm a barber and interact with a lot of different people every day. Really get to know them over time. The one thing I've found is there's a lot of different types of intelligence. It's far easier to find out who is ignorant versus who is smart or dumb. Next story. Working in creative spaces, many are taken aback at seemingly quiet or introverted personalities that don't add a lot to conversations, even acting aloof or disengaged, then tossing something deeply referential or layered in the mix. I worked hard to hire these types because they're absolute killers work-wise. Many act dumb because it brings people's guard down and makes the situation more genuine. Next story. They are quiet about subjects others are experts on. They are engaged listeners. So many people don't pay attention and listen, but smart people do, and they do it even when the info is given wrong. They take stupid good notes when they are not in their element. They have emotional intelligence and don't care how smart you are if you overthink and react to everything. Next story. Everyone in the comments immediately gloating their feigned ignorance because why exactly? Or their foolproof method of deducing intelligence. Spoiler alert, they're talking about themselves. Everyone is convinced they're intelligent. Survey says, you are part of the bell curve, not some interdimensional onlooker observing mediocrity or worse as you ride the intelligence wave of your self-congratulatory pat on the back. Next story. I think most of the comments are just listing signs of intelligence more so than signs of someone who is intelligent but actively downplays it. As for the question, I feel it falls into two camps, the humble or the sociopathic. Those who pretend not to be intelligent or uplift others, and those who do so for a social advantage. The former has a kind of sincere atmosphere to them, like good educators who teach without looking down on their students, and the latter tends to feel off, patronizing almost, like car salesmen or players in a way. Next story. I will actually answer the question of how to spot someone intelligent who is pretending not to be intelligent. Gosh, the reading comprehension of Gen Z is atrocious. You learn impressive things about them in the most random ways. Think Phoebe Buffay on Friends. Just, oh yeah, and when I spent that year at Northwestern, in the middle of a crazy story where you might otherwise not catch it. You gotta be quick. And then you're like, wait, you have a master's degree? You speak Italian? Any of it. Pay attention or you'll miss it. Next story. I think the smartest people are the best listeners. I think it really comes down to that more than anything else. I also think the smartest folks are the ones who know where their expertise lies and where it doesn't. Understanding and accepting your limitations is one of the most important skills we can ever learn. Next story. Mechanically gifted or craft gifted, often. They'll fix things and not say anything. Or you'll say a thing is broken and the next day, it's not. They don't know others can't do these things. I never have to replace appliances, cars, furnace, nothing. I just fix them. Mathematically gifted. They'll gently nudge you with pointed questions on your budgets and proposals. They can see something for 2 minutes that you spent 4 weeks on, completely comprehend it, and know something's wrong. They'll very often simply ask you to explain something so you see the error and get the credit. They'll hide right under your nose as someone that can do the math in their head that you have to look up how to do it all and never mention it. They assume you can, but you're just busy or anxious, not that you can't. Verbally gifted. You'll feel like when you talk to them, you're so grounded. You feel as if things just somehow make way more sense when they're around. They're not controlling about it, but they may be someone who asks you about you a lot. They twist what you say back on your unthinking self. There is a darker version of this, those that know they can do this and can control it. Most don't do harm with it, some can. If you've ever been around someone you think is even tempered, but seems to cause people to explode just asking questions, it's likely their verbal gift. Word folks, God forbid you make a grammar error. Oh, and if you want to know the difference between will, must, may, shall, and elect, ask them. They'll know. These people are pains in the butts of egotistical managers anywhere there is a large employee handbook. They will manipulate the F out of it and their management as just mild entertainment. They master malicious compliance. They're worse than lawyers. And pattern folk carry on a full conversation with you while knitting or doing crochet, or know exactly who is in charge of a room without ever having met anyone within like 15 seconds. Often they train themselves to mistrust this because they think everyone else is deliberately ignoring being able to do it, but you can't tell why. That was a pretty interesting breakdown on different types of intelligence and behaviors. The only one I really feel like I excel at is the verbally gifted, but not in a sense that I help people understand themselves, but more that I'm really great at making people break. I'm a younger sibling, okay? It's just part of the territory. If you've got older brothers, you learn how to become a Bugs Bunny. To play the role so delicately that you won't get in any trouble, but you know just how to pick at the right scabs. Next story. Maybe not the kind of answer we're looking for here, but my sister is much brighter than she likes to let on. Or at least used to, anyway. All throughout her adolescence and early adulthood, she liked to use weaponized incompetence, or play dumb to get people to do crap for her. You can see it in her eyes, like she'd insist she didn't know something or how to perform a task, and there was always this kind of cunning, spiteful, intelligent spark in her eyes, like she was thinking, I could if I wanted, but I don't. So this is your problem now. Next story. You might be digging a hole if you are talking about a subject that you know pretty well, and they let you tell them all about it. What happened then? I remember being like 16 and telling the Smoke on the Water song story to this old head, and it dawned on me that then he knew the details a lot better than I did, and was letting me confidently tell truth adjacent. Next story. I dated a girl who was a legit genius and child prodigy, admitted to MIT at about 16 to study astrophysics. I wouldn't say she necessarily ever pretended not to be smart, but sometimes her brain power showed through in ways she may not have been aware of, because it was just normal for her. For instance, if she learned a skill, she retained it. She was a military brat who had lived all around the world. She had learned several languages, and she still spoke them. She didn't learn them while living there and then forget them, like most people might. Of course, I had no ability to evaluate how well she spoke them, but as far as I know, she was at least competent in Japanese, Finnish, and French, maybe German as well, but I don't recall, from having lived in each place for a time as a child, and having Japanese and Finnish members all over. Likewise, she could draw and sing very well. Once she learned something, she retained it. Another thing was, sometimes she'd figured out the plot twist in a movie or a story way ahead of when the viewer or reader might be expected to get it. The example I can remember was the movie Lone Star, in which the big reveal is, spoiler alert for a movie from the 1990s, the two leads, who dated when they were younger, have strong chemistry and fall back into a relationship during the film, are half-brother and sister. This was a big reveal towards the end. This girl I'm talking about figured it out early on and didn't realize it was supposed to be a surprise because it was so obvious to her. It wasn't the only time she did that. Next story. I knew someone in high school that spent a few years pretending to not be smart. Partied a lot, barely passed their classes, but were in all advanced classes, okay? Got called Bimbo, was an actual nickname from a friend, and Ditz. But if there was a relationship drama, they could quote whole conversations word for word even days later. They didn't take home homework and rarely studied, usually in class right before the exam, but always got by. Could spend the whole class talking with friends or passing notes at the back of class, but still did the work. at least enough to pass. They worked a lot as well, which funded their partying, and were involved in a lot of school activities. Then, near the end of high school, they started doing really well. They wanted to go to university, and their marks started to matter. Got on the honor roll, got scholarships, went off to school, and now have a PhD. Surprised some people, but not everyone. I can relate to that a little bit in some ways. Again, not necessarily the intelligence part. It's not like I was a straight A student, but for whatever reason, I've always retained things very well. My memory is good. So if it was purely about remembering something, I'd do phenomenal. But if it was about processing information and diagnosing stuff and took like actual work, I didn't try, and that's on me. Next story. They can hold two opposing ideas simultaneously. They're capable of handling ambiguity. They're concerned with asking the right questions as much, if not more, as providing the right answers. They steal man's other arguments. They know they're smart, they don't need to tell you. They know the limitations of their knowledge. Next story. Intelligence is shown with knowledge of things. For example, being someone that is smart will be able to explain how wind turbines work. Someone that is very smart usually will continue a conversation to learn more. The objective less to get opinion and more to gather facts. You will find a difference between someone that is smart and someone that is wise. Wisdom tends to be quieter and observe a situation. Smart tends to be louder and create a situation. Next story. Watch for them to start saying something, no more than a sentence, and then stop themselves. When you're smart, you eventually learn people can't keep up, and you then realize that the whole point of talking would be useless anyway. So, you tend to self-silence. Next story. The only time I have seen this give away was how she handled an injured child. I used to be the maintenance person for a school. The receptionist for a while was an attractive middle-aged woman who gave off the vibe of not having two brain cells to rub together. Then one day a child came off their bike and did a face plant into the brick paving. Cut lip, blood everywhere. I am the closest adult, so I take him down to the office, which was also the first aid room. She goes into paramedic professional mode. The ditz was gone, completely taken over by the professional. I never believed the ditz act again, but was very impressed with how she continued to work with it. Next story. Not bragging about their own intelligence. There was a guy I work with who, on multiple occasions, has said to me, "You know, I'm smarter than all of these guys, every single one of them here." Then I was talking to him and another guy about golf, and I asked him, "Do you have clubs? My husband would love to golf with either of you at the golf simulator." And he goes, "I don't golf anymore, but I'm that guy that can walk up to the tee with work boots and Carhartts on and smack the ball straight past the net at the back of the range every time." I'm just that guy. Me and the other guy looked at each other and rolled our eyes. Next story. In general, I'd say intelligent people don't exactly pretend to be dumb, but they'll avoid speaking until they have more information. So, for example, in a conversation about investments, they wouldn't start giving advice until they know more context for that person. If they're mostly asking questions and actually listening before responding, they're probably very intelligent. Sometimes that can be seen as playing dumb, because they will wait or sometimes will even remain silent about something that they have a lot of knowledge about, simply because they don't feel that whatever they have to say will be useful for that context. I have a cousin who is very intelligent, but people tend to underestimate her because she is very quiet. One time at a dinner, I watched someone talk about how to show a horse your dominance in the most absurd ways and how treating the animal with empathy will only make you lose power over them. This cousin, who is in fact an expert horse trainer, didn't say a word. She just kinda smiled at me, like saying, "What an idiot." She knew that adding to that conversation would just be confrontational, and honestly, the more the guy spoke, the more we could just hear how nonsensical what he was saying was. So really there was no need to make his dumbness even more clear. Basically, an intelligent person chooses their moment to speak and take context into account. Next story. A good number of intelligent people I know either have a gap in or disregard for the perception or judgment of others. It may partly be neurodivergence, thus a disconnect with the average person, or a pure disregard. These people are intelligent but often do not match the framework of what we normally assign as intelligent. There is also the idea that multiple forms of intelligence exist, with social intelligence often considered separate from traditional intelligence. Next story. So I am aware that I am not an idiot. I don't believe I'm a genius or anything, but my wife always tells me that she knew I was highly intelligent right from the first date because of how well I listen to people and how I choose my words carefully, yet they flow easily. She has since had people confirm this whenever I shy away from, "Oh, you are so smart," compliments. In my mind, I'm not smart, I am just paying attention. To me, smart people are like one of my cousins, PhD in molecular biology, whose work is already part of huge improvements in cancer treatments. She has literally helped save lives with the noggins of hers. I never graduated college. I just do work that I am good at and make decent money that way. I like to read and learn something new every day. I'm not crazy smart, just naturally curious. But according to others, I am super intelligent or something. Was this the first one that was kind of purely about himself? You know, I'm not saying I'm a genius by any means, but other people, yeah. They say I'm super freaking awesome and I make loads of money. It wasn't that extreme, but that was the vibe. Next story. Matching their vocabulary to the person they're talking to. Someone trying to look smart will use fancy words that no one else knows. Someone who is actually smart explains things in ways the other person can understand. Sadly, it's never been my best skill. I try to do it, but I'm a major word geek, so I often get carried away with $5 words. I'm always impressed by people who can naturally do it. Next story. People playing dumb will ask a lot of seemingly innocent questions that low-key dig up a lot of information. They might also ask someone to explain something they already know to either 1, give the other person an ego boost, or 2, see how much that person actually knows or gauge their communication skills. Also, in most social settings, they'll either be very bubbly or chill and unassuming. Either way, they'll direct most of their energy and attention outwards, so you might underestimate them. Then later on, you learn that they're pulling off some wild stuff in their personal or business lives, and they make it seem like magic. Some of the sentences people are writing, like about how they're so dark and mysterious and have this ultra secret power, feels almost right out of that, what was that book all the big finance and like alpha guys made a big deal out of? The 48 Laws of Power or something like that. Remember, in order to gain more power, you must pretend to be the fool. It is the only way to truly vanquish darkness and gain the upper hand in manipulation. Next story. They ask non-accusatory questions like, I am curious what you think about X. Just gaining information. How does that make you feel? What do you think should be done about X? The smartest people wait for their opinion to be requested, then provide relevant facts, a potential solution, and how they came about that solution. These are caring and intelligent people, a true rarity. However, don't ignore the smart people that also just vibe. These people share their thoughts constantly and just don't care if you listen. They may be equally or even more intelligent. They have probably already been burnt out offering well-thought-out useful info. They may not want to bother rehashing facts and or how they came to their conclusions. This doesn't mean they aren't smart, just that they can't be bothered to argue or teach. Most of these will explain if you ask nicely. Even true sociopaths, the sort that demand a quid pro quo, may be the smartest person in the room. They probably aren't pretending to not be the smartest, though, unless you have threatened them somehow. Next story. So I'm going to replace is really intelligent with sounds like they are part of the educated class. And the really easy answer is if they can code switch to talking the same way as the rest of the group. You see this a ton in the black community, but it's also common in blue-collar gatherings. As someone that was raised by 2 college graduates, it's a skill that I've always lacked, and so talking what I consider to be normally instantly got me labeled as either pretentious or intelligent when I worked blue-collar jobs as a teenager. Next story. Leaps in logic. We know A, so F is trivial, but most people need B, C, D, and E explained to get there. Also, being an expert in totally different fields. If you master one thing, you can master anything. Plenty of people have a PhD in a very specialized field, but are extremely average at everything else. A genius applies what they learn in said specialized fields to all fields. Being called autistic a lot, often because of one and/or two. Dumb people don't understand that most of the time when they're calling someone autistic, they're really just saying they can't keep up or don't understand the way that person is thinking. The Dunning-Kruger effect means these people are far more likely to call you autistic than to reflect on their own stupidity. Next story. Curiosity and vocabulary. People want to know exactly what you mean and ask questions specifically about what you said. People who speak well and understand words or ask what a word means when they don't know. Next story. I've found people who don't stress about being right and don't mind being seen somewhat silly. They don't take themselves too seriously and sometimes are quick to point out something stupid they did before even their friends notice. I've also found people that make odd connections at first glance. So, for instance, they might make a joke that at first seems like it has nothing to do with the situation. Then you take a second and figure out yourself what they were conveying. Next story. They tend to have associations with more than their own peers. You gain nothing by only having friendships and connections with those that agree with you or only disagree about minutiae. They often seek out different perspectives because you can generally only see things from your own experience and knowledge base. Having those opinions that diverge from your own allows new solutions and understanding of how issues and problems are resolved. Next story. They are not easily offended because they detach themselves from truth, opinions, ideas, theories, thoughts, and facts. Their identity does not hinge upon any of these things. You can speak with them about pretty much anything and have a thoughtful conversation without it blowing up into an emotional frenzy. They admit when they are wrong. They listen to you and let you speak before they respond, because they actually find value in what you have to say, even if they don't come to the same conclusion as you. I don't think I really noticed it until one of those other stories said that people were writing about themselves, but now I can't help but see it that way. True or not, but I'm just reading it as them going secretly, well, this is what an intelligent person really is, this is what I've been dealing with my whole life. Which is, totally okay. Again, as a dumb person, I don't know what your life is like, who am I to judge? But anyways, guys, that concludes our stories of people subtly being actually really intelligent but not giving it away. Unfortunately, I display none of these qualities, and that's fine for me, but if you guys know any smart people and you have stories like this that you've seen some subtle and small clues that they may just be very smart, feel free to drop those down below. Tips, advice, tricks, whatever you want, because we like reading them and we like being a part of it. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me, and we will see you in the next one.